Number one. You got the Mariners number one
Who's
in your
number
farm
one?
system.
Who's number one?
How come?
Who's number one? Best in the world.
Yeah, the system is, they've done a great job. They've done a great job kind of across the board. They've been drafting well for, honestly, for a long time now. I was going to say, since the pandemic or so. It goes back farther than that. They've hit on pretty much every first-round pick. They've had some later successes. They had that 1 year, 2 years ago, where they had the three basically first-round picks and went for it. And so far, that looks extremely promising. And they've done well on the international free agent front, too. So, and also Jerry stopped trading them all. That does help when you actually keep the prospects for a minute. We'll see how many are still in the system in 6 months. But for now, yeah, I think this system is loaded. If you were going to criticize it, it's a little heavy on the position player side. But I also get it because the Major League Club is much stronger on the pitching side. So there's a little bit of a looking for balance there. And I'd rather, if you gave me the choice, I'd rather be heavy on position players than heavy on pitchers, just because the attrition rate of pitchers is so high.
So I was thinking about this system and Scott Hunter does a good job as their head of scouting, et cetera. I was thinking about how they're tailor-made, I think, over the last few years to appeal to you. If I understand after years of talking to you, would I be right in saying that you prefer and value impact over floor and proximity to the majors?
Yes, that is absolutely true. I mean, there's risk, right? I could name some guys in the DSL and the complex leagues who have the tools to be superstars, but they're so far away and so low probability that they don't rate as highly. So there's a little bit of a middle ground, but if you're comparing the guy in AAA who could be a fourth starter right now to the guy in A-ball who's got a decent enough chance to be an above average regular or a star, I'm taking the second guy pretty much every day. And I think that's how the industry sees these guys too. They understand stars are expensive, and unless you're one of the 5 teams willing to spend big in free agency, you got to develop those guys on your own, or you got to trade for them. And so those are the guys I tend to rank higher in my top 100 and in my team rankings too.
So of these, obviously Colt Emerson is number 5. Felnin Celesten is in your top 25. Just how high a ceiling do those two guys in particular have?
Yeah, they're a little different, although they're shortstops. They're both going to be stars, but in kind of different ways. Emerson's going to hit. I mean, that is the guy, as I talk to scouts, as I talk to analysts, it is consistent. He can hit for average, hit for hard contact. Probably not going to be huge power. There'll be more than enough power there. But there's just so much confidence in the hit tool. With a chance that he stays at shortstop, he's been better at shortstop in pro ball than I think anybody thought he was going to be when he was coming out of high school. Felnin, on the other hand, it's switch hit, it's power. He stays at shortstop. He'll have to keep hitting. He just hasn't played that much. He missed all of 23 with an injury. He played great at the start of 24. Then he got hurt again. Probably could have come back. They shut him down to play it safe. He's super young. More risk, but I think actually a little bit more upside. That's a chance for a 25-homer shortstop who's a true switch hitter if he hits enough, makes enough contact to get to it. And I think he will, obviously, from the ranking. So I feel a little bit better about Emerson getting to the star ceiling because he's closer, because we've got more data, we've got more scouting looks, but obviously I feel pretty good about Celesten too.
The other name that jumped out to me looking at your list the other day was Montes, because when we talked to you a year ago, you weren't that high on him, and now he's in your top 100. Did he have a season that made you start to believe more?
Approach got a little bit better. The body didn't, and that all those concerns from a year ago, the position, the staying healthy because of his size, is he a DH? He's extremely slow. He's really big. People love to comp him to Jordan Alvarez. Obviously, it's a great outcome. They forget Jordan Alvarez also already had surgery on both knees, and now one of his knees has been bothering him again, and it's because of his size. So you do worry about that with Montes, but the fact that he carried the approach and got a little bit better as he moved up, and obviously the raw power is still very much there. It gives me a little more confidence, right? His probability went up. I don't think his ceiling changed, but his probability of getting to it or getting somewhere close to it did go up because he improved a little bit as he moved up to face better pitching, stayed healthy for a full season, continued to produce.
Keith, I think you can imagine, excuse me, most Mariner fans listening to this right now going, I love this. I've heard these names. I love that they're the number one farm system. But most are probably driving around going, okay, so when can we blend these guys with one of the best rotations in baseball? Like, we just feel like these two things are still, there's still a chasm there. How quickly can some of these guys, in your opinion, make a difference and fill some of those gaps?
I don't think, as much as I love their system, I don't think any of the best guys in the system are going to impact the club this year. I think it's 2026 rather than 2025 that you'll see some of them, Emerson, Cole Young, maybe Harry Ford, depending on how this year goes for him. That's when those guys will start bubbling up to the big leagues. There's some lower down guys who'll show up in the big leagues this year. But in terms of the impact guys, I think they're all a year, maybe a little more than a year away. However, like I've speculated for a long time, I can't imagine they're not going to trade Cole Young at some point. Nothing against him, but they got a billion middle infielders, and he's kind of just less exciting. He doesn't have the upside, the star potential of an Emerson or of a Celesten. So he's the guy I think other teams would value in trade. They got to go get a bat. If they want to contend this year, they have to do something to boost the offense. He's the name that's always jumped out at me. It's not that I've heard him in trade rumors. I'm just trying to take their front office perspective, looking at the system, saying who's the guy who's good, but who we could part with and who other teams would also be willing to value. That's the best way for them to get 2025 impact from the current farm system, is trading somebody, and like he's just the name who jumps out.
You mentioned they're a little bit more position player heavy in the system. Let's say they start this year with the current roster they have. They don't end up trading a pitcher, or even maybe they do trade a pitcher. Maybe it's Luis Castillo and Emerson Hancock slots in as the fifth starter, and they've been very, very lucky. Fortunate, let's use the word fortunate, to not have major starting pitching injuries the last couple of years. What if they do run into one or two? Is this a farm system that can handle bringing up a couple of guys from the minors to start in the near future?
They have some guys who could be the sort of what you're describing, to fill in at the back of the rotation, like Logan Evans, who has incredible off-speed stuff. Throws hard, but the fastball's a little true, and hitters have hit it more than you would like, certainly more than you would expect from its velocity. But if he comes up and is 60% off speed, 40% fastball, he could probably come in and be a fifth starter for them for a bit. There are a couple of those types kicking around the system. Nobody who's going to be more than that, at least in the short term. I mean, there are younger guys. Ryan Sloan from last year's draft, he's 19. The early reports on him from Instructional League, Bridge League, actually they don't do Instructional League, so it's Bridge League and workouts, were outstanding. But he's 3-4 years away. They don't have those fifth, sixth starter type prospects who are going to be sitting in AAA waiting for them, which is why if they do a trade like what you're suggesting, I mean, I've seen the rumors you have, just be careful, right? You're trading from an area of strength, but maybe not necessarily an area of depth. So it's like they've really got to solve a big problem if they're going to trade a Castillo or anybody else in the rotation.
How would you characterize their offseason?
Has it started?
It's going to start soon. It's about to start. Yeah.
They're in the Baltimore camp. I mean, maybe I'm a little more critical of Baltimore because you just got to the playoffs. Do something. And you just lost your number one starter. Do something. The Mariners they're standing pat, and there may be a reason. They may be waiting. Obviously, last year, Corbin Burns got traded to the Orioles around this time, maybe a little bit into February of last year. So it's not that the offseason is over. But there's definitely if I were a Mariners fan, I would say, why aren't we doing anything? Why haven't we done anything? What can we be doing? I mean, they've let some mid-tier position player free agents go by. Maybe they thought Jerkson Profar, Anthony Santander were too risky. Okay, sure. Then you got to go trade for somebody. You have to get another bat. I do think they're contenders if they do that. I do think they can win the division if they get one more impact bat, preferably a guy with some thump. I think that's the thing that they're lacking. But honestly, even if they just got a high on base guy, that would be good too, right? They just need some more offense. And then I think they could hang with the Astros. And I think the Rangers are going to be a lot better this year. But right now, I would say they're third. There's enough of a gap between them, the two teams ahead of them, that I would, if I were doing the standings prediction right now, I would put them in third and probably not make them playoffs.
You mentioned Jerry not trading. I'm just kind of curious, and Salk and I have bantered this about quite a bit over the last couple of years because he and Justin, that front office, are really clear. They are a draft, develop, and trade. And we have you on today because, man, they have drafted and developed incredibly well, all the way up to the number one farm system in baseball. And this is like the second time.
Yeah,
after they did it with all the pitchers and with Kirby and with Logan, and like it's been awesome. But that trade component, and you say, you may have to trade one of the is that trade activity still there? Because the last couple trade deadlines and in this offseason, and Jerry kind of lamented it last offseason, like nobody wants to trade. Jerry's a trader. Justin's a trader. Like, we need to trade. That's the third arm of our identity. Is that still an active component?
I hear this from a lot of front offices, and I have heard this a little bit from Seattle, but especially from some other front offices. There are a lot of teams that only want to trade if they think they win the trade, not the old-fashioned idea of this helps you, this helps me, we both get something out of it. Like, I would compare the Royals under J.J. Piccolo in particular as a team. They've made some trades that on paper you're like, I don't know about that. But the truth is they were win-win trades. That's how the Royals were looking at it. They're willing to give something up if it helps them. That's part of how the Royals ended up in the playoffs last year because they gave stuff up. They gave up prospects. They gave up a draft pick the day before the draft, which many people I knew were kind of shocked they were willing to do that. But it got them a reliever they thought was going to help them get to the postseason. And I think the Mariners are running a bit into that because obviously no one's going to accuse the Mariners of being unwilling to trade. And they clearly don't approach the trade market like they have to win every deal. They're willing to give up. They gave up a lot of talent to get a Rosarino. Both those guys are, probably in the top 150, Aiden Smith and Brody Hopkins, both really good prospects. Third guy they gave up, Ty Cummings, isn't nothing either. So it's not them. There just aren't, I would guess they aren't lining up enough with other teams who are willing to say, yeah, we're going to give you a good major league player for some prospects because we're concerned that our model says we don't win the deal. And to me, granted, it's been a long time since I was in a front office. We were using like an abacus instead of the giant computers now, but you don't have to win the deal. You have to get something you need and think it's a fair price.
You say an abacus instead of the giant computers. The Mariners seem like they're right now trying to go the other way. And everything we've heard from Dan Wilson and Edgar and even from the front office, they haven't spoken a lot recently, has been, we're going away from a lot of the analytics and we're going to try to hit with two strikes and we're going to try to use the big part of the park and we're going to try to run around a lot more and bunt and play small ball, etc. Is there a market for that now? Has there been a course correction where we went too far in one direction and it's time to come back to this?
I'll give you one example. I heard in all the calls that I make to do all of this, all these rankings, somebody said to me that they're finding that the sweeper is starting to be less effective because everybody's throwing it and hitters are adjusting. Like hitters have adjusted to everything ever in the history of baseball. And so, but everyone raced to throw sweepers, give guys sweepers. Often they gave guys sweepers who didn't need it, who had perfectly good true sliders. So, I just bring that up as an example of if you all do the same thing, it's first of all, you're not going to be better than anybody else. The best you can do is just kind of hold serve. But also, the returns start to diminish very, very quickly. And so, sweepers will still be somewhat effective, but they won't be this panacea pitch that everybody's got trying to teach every prospect in their system. So on some level, if the Mariners decide we're just going to look for different stuff, even if it means we're going back to things that seem less valued right now because other teams aren't doing them, because it will help set us apart. Yeah, there's definitely value in that. Just don't bunt. Please don't bunt.
I knew you wouldn't be a fan of that one.
Hey, last thing for me, Keith, how valuable will that number 3 pick be next June?
It's a weird draft because I think it's deep, but it's not good up top. So what that would really mean for the Mariners is they'll probably get a good player at 3, but not a star. But remember what they did that year when they had the 3 picks, the Emerson, Johnny Farmelo, Aiden Smith, who's since been traded, Ty Pete. That draft, they moved money. To take that 3 pick, don't be surprised if they very clearly go under slot to overspend with subsequent picks because this is the year that makes a ton of sense. I know that's true for the team. Washington picks 1. They're already at least saying that is an option on the table. Not that they're going to do it, that this is the year to do that because there's no clear 1-1. There's no superstar. The guy you get at 8 might not be any worse than the guy you get at 3. So that's the year to try to get creative with the money and do more with your subsequent picks. And I would trust Scott Hunter and his group to do that. They've done such a good job drafting first round and beyond in the last 6-7 years that I'd be more than happy to say, yep, here's your budget. Do what you think is best. And if that means cutting big at the first pick so you can go over in the second, third, fourth rounds, great, do it.